Okay, I am back, and today I'll be covering Static Issue 3. But honestly, things really start building in Issue 3, so I think we should just really start hopping into it. Issue 3 starts off where a lot of our cliffhangers ended up at in the previous video. So we start off with Francis in a holding cell. So if you remember, he was snatched up by a shady government organization that's looking to round up bang babies. It's currently unknown what they want with these kids, though it can probably be assumed that it's in order to weaponize them in some way or to recreate their abilities, which was a through point I remember with the Static TV series, that a lot of people wanted to recreate the bang baby powers for themselves. This organization actually reminds me of the show that's more top of my mind, that being the Black Lightning CW series. This group shares a lot in common with the ASA organization's MO, where they would round up the kids with powers for experimentation and using whip powers to catch other people with powers. I'm sure on some level, the Black Lightning series took inspiration from the Static cartoon, and now the writers of the comic are letting some of those ideas feed into their story. But I do find the parallels to be pretty interesting, and I think that's like something that's always worth pointing out. But back to the story. Francis tells his interrogators that he has something they want, and that's information. He asks for full immunity, and in exchange he'll point out any of the bang babies. I think there was no doubt Francis was a bully before, but this kind of solidifies this man as a villain to me. When I saw in the previous issue where he was at the bang baby meeting, I assumed like the two people he was with were his friends, and I considered maybe he just has some masculinity issues and some troubles at home that caused him to be such a dick. But willingly ratting out your other oppressed members in your community is just unforgivable. I get that you do have to look out for yourself, but the idea that snitches get stitches exists for a reason. So whatever happens to Francis after this point is well deserved in my eyes. And it just sucks to me that people like this exist in the real world, in all communities. They're just willing to shit on other people in the exact same situation that they're in. That just blows my mind. In order to just have things marginally better than they would be otherwise. But I digress. We then transitioned back to where we left Static, surrounded by some trigger-happy police in his mentor's lab. I do think I would be remiss to point out that Curtis Metcalf is actually the superhero known as Hardware, who I believe was framed for a serious crime. But let it be known, I have never read a Hardware comic, so I am going off of the plot from some preview pages. So the police may be warranted in being this trigger-happy, but the social commentary is not completely lost here, because Hardware is obviously innocent of whatever crime they think he committed. So the police are acting with a bit of reckless abandon here, no matter how you cut it. Luckily though, our boy Virgil is quick on his feet. He takes a suit off of one of the mannequins and places the mannequin out in the open right as the shutters to the lab open. The cops immediately open fire on the unarmed mannequin before even seeing their target, I should add, and Virgil combines two chemicals to create an improvised smoke bomb to try to get away. The cops spot his giant red duffel bag, which, you know, probably not the smartest play when running from armed cops, and they immediately accuse him of reaching for a weapon to justify shooting him. Can you hear me shaking my head through the mic? Luckily, Static is able to reflexively create a magnetic field that catches the bullets in midair, saving his life. He then disarms the cops by using magnetic force to make them let go of their weapons. And after a brief chase by the police, Static does his iconic sewer lid flight to escape pursuit from the cops. The art has a great sense of perspective here, and it gives me like a ton of nostalgia to when I first imagined being able to fly on a saucer like Static. If that wasn't a dream of yours after you watched the Static cartoon, I don't want to be your friend. After that sequence, we take a break from the action to catch up with Darius, who's getting caught up on the news right when Daisy walks in. We again get to see Darius's influence through superpowers come to the forefront, as information literally walks through his doorway. Daisy shows Darius her powers by disintegrating one of the mech models, and as a previous Gunpla builder, I died a little bit when I saw that, and Darius was obviously distraught. She then asked Darius if he knows any way to help her. She figured he may know something or at least be sympathetic to her plight because of his streams covering bang baby issues. Darius doesn't know anything, but he does inform Daisy that she needs to keep her head down because bang babies are being hunted, and he hasn't figured out who it is or why they're doing it just yet. Static manages to make it home unscathed as he goes through his haul from Hardware's lab. The most interesting probably being the kinetic liquid that reshapes based on energy being poured through it. Virgil's biggest takeaway though is the suit he snagged. It's flame retardant, made of protective material, and resistant to most chemicals. He makes the decision to add a little swag to the suit and takes it to the sewing machine to turn the suit into what his vision of a superhero is. I love that we get to see young Virgil's in a hero costume that's an homage to the Cartoon Network design, with the wild hair, yellow goggles and all. The end result of his sewing work, though, is something more in line with the Milestone original full body suit look, topped off with the snapback. His sister catches a glimpse of the finished product as she walks by, and she gives the perfect eye roll and head shake that says, "That's really what you decided to go with." Virgil's a little embarrassed, but he sticks with it. He stands behind his choices, and I'm about that. After finishing his suit, Virgil decides it's time to confront his dad. There was still some tension between them in deciding what to do with Virgil's future that Virgil barely got a say in. This scene added a lot to both characters. Virgil asks his dad if he wishes he was different, and this line hit home for me, and probably for a lot of young men. But there's this cultural idea in America that I think exists for all races and backgrounds, that fathers want their sons to be as good as them at their skill set, if not better. Like Virgil's father, my dad was pretty good at handiwork, and I never quite had the same knack for it. We find out that Virgil's father developed those skills because he grew up in a poor area, and he had developed those skills in order to prevent dealing with even more hardship. My father's story isn't so dissimilar from Virgil's, and Virgil's dad recognizes that Virgil doesn't have to live those same experiences, and that he has a skill set of his own, and he is proud of his son, and he sees the important parts of himself in him, which resonates with me, as someone who grew up in a relatively easy lifestyle that I think my parents wanted me to have. It just so happens that my skills develop differently. So seeing that acknowledged in a book is kind of cathartic. Miss Hawkins acknowledged that he wants to take the danger away from Virgil, but at the end of the day, he can only do so much, and Virgil will have to have the final say in what happens with his life. And Virgil is happy to hear that, and he's glad to know his dad will have his back whatever decisions he needs to make. I love that this quiet moment, I love that the story takes the time to give us this character moment. So we get so much more about where Virgil's father is coming from and where Static is coming from, that really builds on these characters, allows us to attach more to them. And I think a good story knows when to balance the action with these kind of moments. Afterwards, Virgil then decides to make his way inside and help repainting his charred house with his friends Richie and Frida. Richie and Virgil managed to make up from the tension of issue 1. As a reminder from issue 1, if you don't know where this tension came from, Richie and Frida had a little bit of a falling out when they didn't quite understand Virgil's actions in regards to his powers. Richie and Virgil, they have some brief eye contact where the tension is still there for a moment, but they immediately begin cracking jokes, letting it be known that bygones are bygones and everybody is back on the same level. Frida pulls Virgil aside and apologizes for accusing him of being out of control, and lets him know that they're still his friends and that she'll be there for him with whatever decisions he makes. And it's a sweet moment, but I do have to acknowledge that Frida is completely off model here, and not even in a subtle way. I don't even think a recolor would fix this overt race swapping, but honestly, it doesn't continue into the later issues, so I guess I'll give it a pass, ? Since it's only one scene. As you can see, her hair is not the traditional red, and her skin is a lot less white. I guess there could be an argument that says Frida was a little bit thicker in issue 1, but she thick. To be honest, when I first read this chapter, the first 2 times, I thought this was just another girl in Virgil's friends group, but no, this is just a really bad design for these panels. I don't know if you've noticed, but the art in this whole issue has been kind of off, and it proceeds to get a little bit worse in the next 2 pages. Oh, we also get confirmation here that Richie is gay in this version, which is something I was hoping they would keep. Virgil cracks a joke with Richie about him hitting on his sister, and Richie lets it be known that, Virgil's more his type. So I'm just happy for the representation. We made it. I think it's important that Richie keep his sexuality in this comic, since that was something they wrote out of the animated series because you couldn't be gay back in the day. But I'm glad we're keeping it preserved into the reboot series. But after making up, Virgil's day ends on a positive note, and he's thinking things will get better. But as soon as he makes it back to school the next day, he's late to class. But before he goes in, he gets pulled aside by Darius. Darius and Virgil watch from the closet as Francis, officially going by Hot Streak now, pulls Daisy along with another Bang Baby out of class with a group of agents backing him up. I do feel the need to point out the very minor plot hole that Daisy should not have been pulled or identified. No one knows she is a Bang Baby, and she's only shown her powers to Darius at this point. And it's not like Hot Streak literally has a Bang Baby detector inside of him. So it is a huge stretch that she should be singled out, even if she was at the incident. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Why would Hot Streak even risk being wrong about a Bang Baby when the condition of his freedom is solely based on the fact that he would be able to identify them. I'm sure he would only identify people who he absolutely knew were Bang Babies, and it's just not possible that he knew Daisy was Bang Baby. But I think they needed to add a character that had a direct relationship with the main group in order to provide adequate motivation for them to go rescue them. Even though I think abducting kids is motivation enough to do anything. But, you know, whatever. But with that, issue 3 ends, and things really start ramping up to the climax towards issue 4. So look forward to that, and I want to thank you all for watching this video, and I'll be sure to get that next video up as soon as I can. Remember to like and subscribe. Thanks.